Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. Prime Minister returns after his 8-day tour of Central Asia, says he is convinced India and Central Asia must reconnect on a larger scale. One of the largest religious congregations on earth, the Kumbh Mela, begins in Nashik. Tight security in place for the event. Protests in Greece over bailout conditions. Coalition partners also refused to back Tsipras as he faces Wednesday deadline to clear parliament hurdle. Third and final ODI between India and Zimbabwe to be played in Harare today. Hosts hunt for a face saver after losing first two matches. And it's a historic mission to know more about the second most massive dwarf planet in the solar system. NASA's New Horizon mission to zoom past Pluto today. First up in the bulletin this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned home last night after his 6-nation tour of Russia and 5 Central Asian countries. The highlight of his tour was his attendance of the BRICS and SCO summits and talks with his Pakistani counterpart Nawaz Sharif and some other leaders. Over the last 8 days, he travelled to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Modi flew in from Tajikistan, which was the last stop of his visit. While leaving the Tajik capital, he had tweeted saying that he is convinced that India and Central Asia must reconnect on a larger scale. He also said that strong ties between India and Central Asia are important for the future. Moving on now, the Simhasta Kumbh Mela, considered one of the largest religious congregations on earth, has begun in Nashik in Maharashtra. The Mela, that is being held after a gap of 12 years, was inaugurated by Home Minister Rajnath Singh early today. Tens of thousands of sadhus and pilgrims are in the city for the event. Millions are expected to attend the Mela and take a dip in the Godavari River. The Shahi Snan or Royal Bath has been scheduled for Parwani days of August 29th, September 13th and September 18th in Nashik. The civic body has set up Sadhu Gram over 315 acres in Nashik where tents have been put up. The temporary tent town has been supplied with toilets, 24-hour drinking water, LPG cylinders and electricity.
मैं अपना सौभाग्य मानता हूं कि इस ध्वजारोहण के अवसर पर मुझे भी यहां पर उपस्थित रहने का सौभाग्य प्राप्त हुआ है और आज से शुभारंभ हो रहा है यहां पर कुंभ का.
Well, here's a look now at the other significant news and events lined up for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. The government will release inflation data based on wholesale price index for June 2015. WPI inflation stood at negative 2.4% in May 2015, marking the 7th consecutive month when it remained in the negative. In April, it was minus 2.65%. The fate of IPL teams Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals will be known today. A Supreme Court-appointed high-level committee headed by former Chief Justice of India R.M. Lodha will pronounce the quantum of punishment against the franchisees and their team officials Gurunath Mayappan and Raj Kundra for betting during IPL Season 8. The Supreme Court in January held that the allegation of betting against Mayappan and Kundra stands proved. A Delhi court will resume hearing on final arguments in the 2G scam case. Former Telecom Minister A. Raja, DMK MP Kandimuri and 15 others, including several corporate executives, are charge-sheeted in the case. The court had framed charges against them under various provisions of the Indian Penal Code and the Prevention of Corruption Act. A special court in Delhi will pronounce the order on framing of charges against former Jharkhand Chief Minister Madhu Koda and 7 others in a coal block allocation scam case. The case pertains to alleged irregularities in allocation of Rajhara North Coal Block in Jharkhand to Kolkata-based Vini Iron and Steel Udyog Limited. A 14-hour general strike has been called in Manipur by Joint Committee on Inner Line Permit System to press its demand for introducing an effective bill for implementation of restriction on visitors from outside to the state. The state government, in the face of growing protests, withdrew the controversial Manipur Regulation of Visitors and Migrant Workers Bill of 2015 yesterday. A student was killed in confrontation between the protesters and the police on July 8th. Going on now, political temperature is soaring in Bihar months ahead of the crucial assembly elections. The much-touted RJD-JDU Congress alliance seems to have found a major poll plank against the BJP, the socio-economic caste census. Leaders of the three parties have dared the BJP to release the report, accusing the centre of committing fraud by not going public with the caste data. Here's more.
With an eye on political dividends in the upcoming Bihar Assembly elections, political parties are exerting pressure on the BJP to release the socio-economic caste census report. Leading the march to State Governor K. Tripathi residence on Monday was RJD Chief Lalu Prasad Yadav.
पिछड़े वर्गों के और सबका जो सेंसस हुआ जनगणना बड़ा भारी खतरा महसूस किया है भाजपा और दाम दिया है रिपोर्ट और समझ गया कि अब हम बचने वाले नहीं हैं.
Chief Minister Nitish Kumar also questioned the centre's intent in keeping the data under wraps, while JDU President Sharad Yadav accused the party of playing caste politics.
कुछ आंकड़ों को जारी किया गया और जाति से संबंधित आंकड़ों को जारी नहीं किया गया. आखिर क्यों, यह प्रश्न उठता है. जब सर्वेक्षण कराया गया, गणना कराई गई, तो फिर उसकी रिपोर्ट आनी चाहिए और लोगों को संख्या के बारे में मालूम होना चाहिए और जो समाज के विभिन्न समूह हैं उनकी आर्थिक स्थिति के बारे में, सामाजिक स्थिति के बारे में भी जानकारी मिलनी चाहिए.
और ये कास्ट सेंसस हो जाएगा तो देश में इनकी पोल खुल जाएगी. इसलिए कोई सरकार ये नहीं करेगी और ये जो गरीब तबका है, जो असली भारत है, उसे ये भाषा के जरिए, धूर्तता की भाषा के जरिए बेवकूफ बनाते रहेंगे.
The centre released the economic data from the socio-economic census on the 3rd of July, but refrained from releasing the caste-based data.
I'm sure with the enormity of schemes and their reaches that all governments have, this document will form a basis of helping us to target groups for support.
Interestingly, not just the BJP rivals, but ally Jitan Ram Manjhi is also demanding the caste data to be made public. Pressure has been mounting ever since Party President Amit Shah claimed that the BJP gave the country its first OBC Prime Minister. With Shyam Sundar, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me this morning for a chat to talk about this is Parsa Venkateshwar Rao, editorial consultant of the DNA. Good morning, Parsa. Thank you for joining me on the program. Well, as far as this caste census data is concerned, why is this such a politically explosive subject?
I think every party wants to see whether it has any electoral advantage to be gained out of this. We can see that in the present context of the forthcoming Bihar election, assembly election, both RJD, Lalu Prasad Yadav and Janata Dal of Nitish Kumar just want to get a hang of for themselves of the numbers and the arithmetic. I think everybody is worried about the arithmetic. And I think the caste census provides a good figure, good indicator, a reliable indicator. The other thing is, it can be very difficult for everybody, not just the BJP or the Congress or the Janata Dal parties, because once the caste census comes out, we know who are really backward. Right now, we really do not know who is backward in terms of caste and economic and social factors. Many caste groups want to be included in the OBC list on the argument that they are socially backward and that they are economically backward. Some of the groups, caste groups, are not economically backward, they are socially backward. So this whole argument will get a better, more reliable base in terms of figures if it is made public. But I think what the parties in government, any party, even if the Congress were in power, perhaps it would have hesitated to release the data because the conflict will come out into the open. the caste groups which have been excluded out of this OBC list, they would say, please include us now, we are
Yes.
backward. The people who are in the OBC list, but if the figures were to show that they are not economically backward or socially backward as they were many years ago, and it would mean that they should logically be pulled out of the list, then they would resist that, So these figures are more or less like a double-edged sword.
Indeed.
It will not suit anybody. I mean, people who are claiming, please make them public, don't realize that if the figures bring the contrary facts into light, then they are in trouble. I think the only people who have must not have gained, but partially are the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe groupings. And even there, perhaps there are surprises awaiting, that there is a section of the scheduled caste which might have gained a bit. There must be a section of the scheduled tribes which might have gained a little. So nobody is happy, because the people who have gained because of the reservation policy would not like to be told that, look, you have made it good, perhaps it's time for you to step out.
So are you saying then that the government will not release this data anytime soon? Do we expect this data to be released anytime soon?
I think they would delay it as much as possible. They would delay it as much as possible because the protests will be very, very intense, especially from groups which have become well off among the OBCs. And if the data were to show that they are well off, they would not like to read the writing on the wall. That is my reading.
Do you see some more leaders, raking up the issue going forward? Maybe someone like Mulayam Singh Yadav, or for that matter, even a Mayawati raising this issue further?
Mayawati might raise the issue because then it will go to her advantage, because majority of the scheduled castes are not in a well-placed position economically or socially. There is a section, there is an elite among the scheduled castes which has emerged. There is a middle class that has emerged. Social scientists are talking about it, but not so openly. So I think, but from an objective point of view, the government should step aside and let the caste census be declared by the Census Director General of Census and Population.
And
that is what. So the government would say, it is not our concern. Like, it's a population statistics,
Indeed.
It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with social statistics, to know what is happening and how are things.
Indeed, that's a smart way of taking that forward. Remains to be seen whether that is done or not. Thank you so much, Parsa, for putting things into perspective for us and joining us on the program this morning. Well, moving on now, here's a look at what else is making news across the country in our segment Nationwide. 4 police officials recruited by the state police as auxiliary personnel were abducted by suspected Naxalites in the Bijapur district of Chhattisgarh. Officials said that the personnel were abducted from a civilian bus plying in the Kutru police station area of the district. These personnel were inducted to assist state police in conducting anti-Naxal operations. Heavy and continuous rainfall has led to flooding in many villages and disrupting normal life in Odisha. Sundargarh municipality has been affected by flash floods with many homes submerged in water. The district administration has evacuated 370 people from these wards and has placed them in relief camps. The municipal workers' strike in Telangana continues as talks with government to resolve the impasse failed after 8 days. The municipal workers are demanding an increase in their wages and other facilities like health cards, provident funds and accommodation. The government said that it is unhappy that the workers continued their strike, though their demands are being considered positively and with sympathy. The Supreme Court allowed criminal proceedings against Vijay Mallya for defying repeated Enforcement Directorate summons for personal appearance in a case of alleged FERA violation. The court also imposed a fine of 10 lakh rupees on him for abusing the process of the law. The ED had alleged that Mallya had violated the provisions of Foreign Exchange Regulation Act in arranging funds to advertise his liquor products abroad over a decade ago. Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come. Iran nuclear talks make progress. Some reports even say deal could be announced in a few hours. That and other international news on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
live Rajya Sabha session. News, views, reports and analysis you can trust on social media. Subscribe, follow, like Rajya Sabha Television.
आजादी के बाद कैसे बदला परिवेश, कैसे बनी संसद, कैसे उठा देश.
When the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
कौन थे वो लोग जो दे गए हमको शानदार विरासत, लोकतंत्र की मजबूत इमारत. राज्यसभा टेलीविजन.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, Greece might have won a third bailout from the EU, but the challenges for Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras are far from over. There is already anger in Greece over what many are calling a betrayal of their trust. Prime Minister Tsipras has to ensure the conditions for the bailout are passed in Parliament by Wednesday. Here's more.
Anger in Athens. Hundreds of anti-austerity protesters outside the Greek parliament reject bailout terms accepted by Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras to international creditors. They are calling it a betrayal of trust.
Ο Τσίπρας και η κυβέρνηση του πρόδωσε στον ελληνικό λαό. Του έθεσε μια ερώτηση, απάντησε συγκεκριμένο ο ελληνικός λαός. Αυτό που έχουμε σήμερα είναι προδοσία. Είναι στα όρια του πραξικοπήματος, αν δεν είναι πραξικόπημα. Το πραξικόπημα δεν το έκαναν μόνο οι Βρυξέλλες.
Ήρθαμε να υπερασπίσουμε το όχι που ψήφισε ο ελληνικός λαός. Το όχι το οποίο το αθέτησε η κυβέρνηση εν ρηπεί οφθαλμού.
Να το δώσει μήνυμα ο λαός, όπως έδωσε την προηγούμενη Κυριακή στις κάλπες, ότι αυτά τα μέτρα δεν είναι ανεκτά, δεν είναι επιτρεπτά. Πρέπει να σταθούμε περήφανοι, για πρώτη φορά στη ζωή μας πρέπει να σηκώσουμε ανάστημα.
The Prime Minister's woes don't end on the streets. In his own government, his coalition partners are up in arms.
Ξεκαθαρίζω ότι η συμφωνία αυτή είναι έξω από τη συμφωνία και πέρα από τη συμφωνία που κάναμε η πολιτική αρχή από τον Πρόεδρο της Δημοκρατίας και την οποία ενέκρινε η Βουλή των Ελλήνων.
But for the political leadership outside Greece, Tsipras now has to walk the talk.
This deal gives that sort of stability a chance, but obviously there's a long way to go to put into place all the things that have been agreed.
There are still some important decisions and important steps that need to be taken, but we're hopeful that all sides will make the difficult decisions and follow through on the important work that needs to get done.
The third bailout for Greece was agreed by EU leaders after a marathon meeting the past weekend. The bailout is conditional on Greece passing agreed reforms by Wednesday.
Minister, comments?
Tsipras now has to get several unpopular measures through the Greek parliament in the next 2 days. These include measures to streamline pensions, raise tax revenue and liberalize the labour market. While securing the deal has been a task for the PM, getting it through when public opinion is against it is a bigger challenge. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, US stocks finished sharply higher with the Dow Jones Industrial Average re-emerging in positive territory for the year after the Eurozone leaders reached a tentative deal to bail Greece out. The improved European picture led to best three-day run this year for the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite. Facebook, Netflix and Amazon all hit record highs, while Apple's 1.93% rise gave the biggest boost to the Nasdaq. Greece won conditional agreement to receive a possible $95 billion over 3 years. Also making Wall Street more confident were Chinese stocks rising for a third straight day as data showed exports rose while imports slipped in June, a tentative sign global demand might be on the mend. Meanwhile, talks in Vienna aimed at reaching a deal on Iran's nuclear program have made progress according to the latest report, but some issues remain unresolved. 6 world powers, including the US, Russia and the UK, have been negotiating with Iran about scaling down its nuclear activities. It is hoped that Iran will agree to do so imminently in return for the lifting of some economic sanctions. The latest deal deadline on Monday night passed with no announcement. But there are some reports that a joint statement by Iran and the EU could be read out in a few hours. But the US has said that the deal won't be signed in a hurry.
continue to be significant issues that remain, and the president will not sign on to an agreement. And this is the attitude that's taken by our P5+1 partners too. They're not going to sign on to an agreement until all of our concerns have been addressed. And as long as they continue to make progress in doing that, then the talks will continue.
Preventing the Islamic Republic of Iran from building nuclear weapons is the paramount challenge of our generation. This is not about partisan politics. This is about survival. This is about our future.
Moving on now, US-led forces have stepped up air operations in Iraq against Islamic State positions near Ramadi. White House has confirmed that the increased airstrikes are a sign of the ongoing coordination between the Iraq military and the United States. First batch of F-16 fighter jets have reached Iraq to help strengthen its air force as Iran battles Islamic State militants who has control around a third of the country's landmass. With airstrikes increasing to combat Islamic State forces in Iraq and Syria, the White House said that they are concerned about the growing threat from extremists operating in Libya.
This is obviously an operation that's led by the Iraqi military, but those forces that are operating under the command and control of the Iraqi central government can't expect to have the support of the United States and our coalition partners. Our coalition has actually significantly stepped up the pace of military airstrikes in Iraq. The majority of those airstrikes coming in Anbar. So that is an indication of the ongoing coordination between the Iraqi military and the United States and our coalition partners.
Well, scientists are calling it an epic once-in-a-lifetime event. There is anxiety mixed with anticipation as NASA's unmanned spacecraft will today fly within 7,750 miles of Pluto, taking high-resolution photos of its surface and collecting all sorts of scientific data. However, we won't see any of these photos until Wednesday afternoon because the craft will be focusing on data collection and not transmission during the brief flyby.
Fasten your seatbelts. New Horizons has arrived at the Pluto system. The excitement is palpable. It's a day that astronomers had been eagerly waiting for. Google has dedicated its doodle to this. After a journey of more than 9 years and 3 billion miles, the New Horizons spacecraft is ready for its up-close look at the Pluto system. Yes, NASA's spacecraft will today fly by Pluto, the last uncharted world in our solar system. And the scientific information it gathers in this encounter will eventually rewrite the textbooks on this tiny icy world of which we know so little.
Pluto right now, I won't read down the numbers as they go, but it's going to be a really dynamic next 24 hours plus, and it's just really emblematic of that science at NASA never sleeps. And I don't think you will either for the next couple of days, but it will be exciting, and I want to thank all of you for being here.
The Hubble Space Telescope previously captured the best pictures of Pluto, but those were pixelated. Scientists say the New Horizons team is turning a point of light into a planet. Apart from sending pictures, the probe will also gather scientific data on Pluto's atmosphere, temperature, and geology.
Having images that were so crude before. And now when you look at an image of Pluto, you see a real planet there. You see a complex world that just begs for exploration. And yet, we're going to do 100 times better than that with the images made on Tuesday. We only have one spacecraft. We have to get this right. And now we're on Pluto's doorstep. And it's just thrilling.
However, scientists won't be absolutely certain of mission success until Wednesday afternoon, 13 hours after New Horizons' closest approach with the planet. It will be Thursday before the closest of Pluto's close-ups are available for release. And it will be well into next year, October 2016, before all the anticipated data are transmitted to Earth. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, more news from around the globe in our World Wrap. Mexican police are on high alert after drug kingpin El Chapo Guzman broke out of a high-security prison. Interior Minister Miguel held a meeting with state governors on how to prevent an increase in violence following the escape. A manhunt is underway across Mexico to try and recapture Joaquin Al Chapo Guzman. There are fears that his escape could spark a turf war with the rival drug cartels. Guzman fled through a 1.5-kilometer long tunnel on Saturday night. French police are hunting for 3 armed men who stormed a clothes store in a shopping center in northwest Paris. The gunmen fled after what is suspected was an attempted robbery. 18 people were evacuated by special forces after apparently hiding out in the canteen of the shop. The area around the shopping center has been closed down. No one was injured. Thousands of people in Bangladesh are demanding justice for a teenage boy who was beaten to death by a group of men who filmed themselves laughing and jeering as they carried out the attack. A video of the 13-year-old's murder has gone viral on social media. The killers accused the boy of trying to steal a bicycle rickshaw van in the northeastern city of Sylhet. 3 people have been detained, including the main suspect who tried to flee to Saudi Arabia after the attack. Moving on to some sports news now, India will be hoping for a series whitewash against Zimbabwe as they play the hosts in the third and final one-dayer in Harare today. India has an unassailable 2-0 lead after they scrapped past the hosts in the first ODI and won the second one comfortably with 62 runs. However, there is some bad news for the Indian fans as informed batsman Ambati Rayudu was ruled out of the tour after picking up a quadricep injury. Manish Pandey or Sanju Samson will replace him. Zimbabwe have nothing to lose in the last match and will look to better their performance of the first ODI where they were beaten by 5 runs in a thriller. Here's a look now at what else is making news in the world of sports in our Sports Beat. Former Giro d'Italia winner Ivan Basso withdrew from the Tour de France on Monday after discovering he had testicular cancer. The disease was detected after a checkup following a crash on stage 5 on the race's first rest day. Basso was set to be one of Alberto Contador's key lieutenants in the mountains over the next 2 weeks. Manchester United has confirmed the signing of French midfielder Morgan Schinderlin from Southampton for a reported $38.9 million. The 25-year-old Schinderlin has signed a 4-year contract with the club. The announcement came soon after the capture of Germany captain Bastian Schweinsteiger from Bayern Munich. English football team Liverpool trained at Bangkok's Rajamangala Stadium before a friendly match against Thailand All-Stars. The Premier League team was led by team manager Brendan Rodgers with captain Jordan Henderson and defender Martin Skirtle. Liverpool will head to Australia after playing their friendly against Thailand All-Stars. And finally, champions Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams brought back a Wimbledon tradition with a twist, literally. At the tournament's annual champions dinner, the 2 tennis greats danced to the Bee Gees' Night Fever. Djokovic may have some serious moves on the tennis court, but he probably needs more practice on the dance floor. I'm going to leave you with these visuals. Bye-bye.